published on YouTube. So dear colleagues, students, and all guests, welcome to the 9th lecture of the East Aegean and Anatolia lecture series for this year, 2022. I'm the host for the series for this year. My name is Çiğdem Atakuman, and today we are hosting my dear friend and colleague Vasıf Şahoğlu, who is a professor at the Department of Archaeology of Ankara University in the program for Proto-History and Near Eastern Archaeology. Vasıf is also the current director of Ankara University's Koç Research Center for Maritime Archaeology, ANKÜSAM, and his research focuses on the prehistoric and proto-historic archaeology of Anatolia and the Aegean in general. He has been conducting excavations at the Bronze Age site of Çeşme, Bağlararası, and is currently also the director of land and underwater excavations at Limantepe in Izmir. Following the passing of late Professor Dr. Hayat Erkanal, he is now also the coordinator of the Izmir region excavations and research projects, IRERP. He has been publishing extensively and intensively on Bronze Age economies, maritime archaeology, human responses to natural disasters, long distance travel, contacts and trade issues, burial habits and pottery studies surrounding the Aegean and Anatolia. And I should remind that there's also wonderful publications of figurines and other symbolic objects that I have been following very closely. Some of his research, recent publications also include topics on paleo shoreline reconstruction and underwater archaeological potential of Limantepe, published with colleagues on, just recently in Quaternary Science Review. There's also other articles related to prehistoric farming settlements in Western Anatolia in Journal of Mediterranean Archaeology. These are all recent, only within the last year. I can count on at least 4 or 5 indexed publications. And today we will be talking about Vasıf will be talking about his interdisciplinary investigations at Çeşme, Bağlararası, specifically focusing in on the new discoveries of tsunamis, volcanic ashes, due to the Late Bronze Age Thera eruption in the region. So I welcome you all, and I would like to thank Vasıf for being with us and sharing his wonderful research results with us today. And the floor is yours, Vasıf. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Çiğdem. Hello, everyone. I would like to thank Çiğdem Atakuman for her invitation to give this talk in the ARVA lecture series of Eastern Aegean and Anatolia. It's always a pleasure to be involved with ARVA and also now to be here doing this talk. I will be presenting some of our recent results from our archaeological interdisciplinary work in the Izmir region, particularly on Çeşme, Bağlararası. So, yes, the structure of my talk will be it's basically based on our recent research, as I said, which we published in the January issue of PNAS. I'm going to be giving a general introduction of our archaeological work at Çeşme Bağlararası project. I will be talking about the archaeology of the site, the stratigraphic development, what we know so far and what we are currently working on, and excavation methodologies, how it really helped us to identify and discover the volcanic ash and the tsunami deposits at the site, and I will be presenting you this evidence and give you a view of our future perspectives. The fertile region of Izmir is located in the heart of central western Anatolian coastline. This region is connected to central Anatolia through the valleys of big rivers such as Hermos and Meanders on one side, and acts as one of the most important gateways of western Anatolia, opening to the Aegean Sea through the many harbor settlements located on the coast. The economic importance of the region is also underlined through metal ores of copper, silver, lead, and gold, particularly in the region of Bağlararası ancient colophon. Therefore, with its fertile landscape and mineral sources, this unique location was an ideal landscape for habitation since prehistoric times. Izmir Region Excavations and Research Project is an ongoing project aiming to investigate and reconstruct the environmental changes and socio-economic and political structure of Izmir region and coastal western Anatolia during the prehistoric periods. IRERP was founded in 1992 under the direction of Professor Hayat Erkanal and has been continuing under my direction as a project of Ankara University, Anküsam. Sorry. The project includes excavations of the sites of Panastepe, Baklatepe, land and underwater excavations at Limantepe, Kocabaştepe, Karaburun, Kömürburnu, and Çeşme Bağlararası, all located around the Gulf of Izmir. Çeşme Bağlararası, which is going to form the main focus of our talk today, is located in a narrow valley situated between two hills, and the harbor settlement must have shifted its location within this valley depending on the changes of the coastline. Excavations revealed the presence of a horizontally moving settlement at Bağlararası, unlike the vertically stratified settlements of Anatolia. The reasons behind this movement should be sought in the changing coastline of the area. Çeşme Bağlararası is inhabited at least from the 3rd millennium BC onwards until the end of the Late Bronze Age. Various gaps in the habitation history are most probably due to the horizontally shifting of the settlement. One extremely interesting layer is, of course, the layer of volcanic ash found in 2012, which marks a distinctive phase in the habitation history of the site. Geoarchaeological work conducted at the site by Ertuğ Öner and Serdar Vardar revealed a preliminary reconstruction of site's formation through time. According to their research, Çeşme Bağlararası was situated adjacent to a river, and the earliest settlement was constructed adjacent and on top of a coastal marshy area. The fact that archaeological deposits at the site extends at least 2 meters below today's sea level clearly indicates the role of tectonics for the area. The active tectonic character of the region probably also has a role in the constantly shifting location of the settlement through time and offers an explanation for various gaps in the habitation history at Çeşme Bağlararası. A severe earthquake horizon of the Middle Bronze Age date is also found during the excavations. Bağlararası today lies in the heart of Çeşme, one of the most touristic destinations in Turkey. The site has one of the best harboring locations of the Aegean, which is serving as a marina today. Excavations revealed 2 settlement areas dating to the mid-3rd millennium BC and the other to the 2nd millennium BC. Our talk today will focus on the 2nd millennium BC settlement. The earlier parts of the 2nd millennium BC is so far unknown in Çeşme Bağlararası. The site began to flourish by the 2nd quarter of the millennium, and a fully organized harbor settlement belongs to this period. Centrally administered polities emerged both in Anatolia and in the Aegean during this period, characterized by increased social complexity and intensification of interregional connectivity. These are, of course, the Hittites in Anatolia and the Minoans in the Aegean and in the Aegean Sea. Çeşme Bağlararası Phase 2 reflects the earliest fully organized plan of the 2nd millennium site, based on the data available at hand. At least 3 successive phases have been recorded, 2C to 2A, 2B being the best documented. A severe earthquake horizon is separating phase 2B from the following 2A, further highlighting the tectonic character of the area. The northeastern part of the fortifications surrounding the site was unearthed during the excavations. The construction technique indicates that the walls were constructed in blocks abutted to each other. A small bastion was also built exactly at the adjoining part of the two separate fortification wall blocks for further strengthening the system. Çeşme Bağlararası 2B settlement consists of insula or houses separated from each other by streets that are attached to the fortification wall. The settlement has a main street which is following the same layout as the fortification wall, and narrower side streets are attached to this main street. The majority of houses are rectangular or trapezoid in shape and constitute their own walls attached to the adjacent one. They all have domed ovens in the left inner corner of the house. The excavated part of the settlement constitutes a domestic corner where almost all of the buildings seem to have been used as houses, except for two distinctive structures which are located at important locations on the main artery at the junction points of the streets. One of these features is a trapezoid building with an entrance from the main artery. The main room is followed by three subterranean rooms which are accessed from above. The main room included various installations associated with ground stones and were probably used as a wine workshop where the grapes were crushed and juice was collected. The building was severely destroyed during the earthquake that brought an end to Çeşme 2B phase. The two big face pot jars you see here in the slide were found here in the debris of the house collapsed into the street during the severe earthquake. The southern room yielded carbonized seeds of various species, indicating that it might have been used as a storage. The one in the middle was plastered on all sides along with the floor and gave us an impression that this might have been a container for storing liquids, in this case, probably wine. And the final room included many ceramic pots, mainly for liquids and drinking. The wine workshop at Çeşme Bağlararası, located at a strategic location within the settlement, clearly demonstrates production beyond the level of a single household and also gives us an important hint regarding the economic organization of the inhabitants of the site during this period. A pottery kiln unearthed yet on another strategic location, again on the main artery, further gives us a glimpse of organized production activities at Çeşme Bağlararası during the second quarter of the second millennium BC. Kitchen of a house adjacent to the wine house completely collapsed during the earthquake, thus offering us a unique study case for analyzing the complete inventory of a kitchen for this period. The earliest imported pottery of Çeşme also appears during this phase. They are all in fine wares. A pedestal jar appears both in local fabrics as well as in imported fabrics, the one you see on the right in the slide. Phase 2B at Çeşme Bağlararası ends with a severe earthquake which destroyed almost all the buildings and the fortification wall. The following phase, 2A, sees the reorganization of the site. Some streets of the previous period were blocked by newly built walls or have been narrowed. Some walls also went out of use. The most distinctive change is the reduction of the size of the settlement by building a new fortification wall on top of the adjoining walls of the two phase 2B houses on the eastern side of the settlement. A probable gateway is also spotted on this side. Unfortunately, it was impossible to investigate it. As you can see, there is a tangerine tree right on top of this spot. This horizon is marked with construction of numerous plastered, stone-lined or clay basins, along with huts and ovens all around the settlement, probably indicating a phase of survival following an earthquake. The pottery tradition continued from the previous phase with no change. Even the imported pottery seems to follow similar patterns, implying similar maritime connections. Çeşme Bağlararası Phase 2A ends with a so far unknown event which may be related to another earthquake, but there's not enough evidence at this stage to further comment on this matter. The site seemed to have been deserted following the end of Phase 2A. The deserted settlement turned into an area with half-buried house remains and potential so-so building materials. No architectural feature of the following level 1 has been found at the excavating trenches. The presence of this level is attested only in pits and in destruction fields throughout the excavated area. Based on the interdisciplinary studies of our team members, we can now say that Çeşme Bağlararası Level 1 reflects a complete transformation of the site into a whole new concept, where it became a widely connected site and its material culture shows distinctively Aegean features. Our Ankara University, British School at Athens, Switch Lab collaboration on the study of pottery from Çeşme Bağlararası revealed that the most striking evidence for this transformation lies in the appearance of a new category of ceramic vessels, richly decorated and linked with drinking sets that echo Cretan practices and reflect direct or indirect associations with the Minoan world. Level 1 deposits yielded numerous pottery fragments, highlighting a dramatic change in pottery manufacturing technologies from the previous phase. New shapes dominate the pottery repertoire, among which incense burials, well known from the Minoan cultural sphere, holds an important place. Dark on light and light on dark varieties of painted pottery are found in these deposits, along with monochrome slipped and plain wares. Two distinct categories are identified among the painted pottery. These are the Minoan and the so-called Minoanizing examples. The Minoan pottery shows strong stylistic and technological similarities with Cnossian pottery, so their provenance is tentatively associated with Central Crete. A stair-tied stone vase from this level can be interpreted as an exotic prestige object, opening a new dimension to our understanding of the site's character during this phase. The textile tools at the site are currently under study by Melissa Fetters from Salzburg University, and based on her preliminary observations, the Middle Bronze Age toolkits for textile production at Çeşme Bağlararası comprise mainly spindle whorls and bone tools, but also the very first horizontally pierced spools. There is a striking change, however, by level 1, where the use of rough-weighted loom, attested by discoid loom weights, is fully introduced as a new technology that shows strong affiliation with the Minoan world. Archaeobotanical research has been taking place at Çeşme Bağlararası since 2016, led by Tom Maltas, who recently completed his PhD on this material at the University of Oxford. To date, we have processed over 15,000 liters of soil to produce over 1,500 archaeobotanical samples. This has revealed a high diversity of plants exploited at the site. Just as the previously explained elements, we can also talk about the introduction of new species in Çeşme Bağlararası level 1. Our research, among other various important questions, also focuses on the more controversial topic of explaining the nature of Minoan and Minoanizing elements in this area around the second quarter of the second millennium BC. Of course, this is a complex phenomenon that requires a multi-proxy archaeological study and is currently being investigated at Çeşme Bağlararası in terms of bioarchaeological material, as well as pottery studies and study of textile tools. Changing technologies and introduction of new shapes and clay sources in pottery, and introduction of new technologies and textile making, differences in animal husbandry and crop cultivation will be giving us important clues regarding the character of the big changes that took place at Çeşme Bağlararası around the second quarter of the second millennium BC. As we were excavating at Çeşme Bağlararası, we were always chasing answers for the basic question of what happened to level 1 settlement and why do we find it only in pits and field deposits. What we found in the first excavation seasons in 2003 and 4 was this picture here, a perfectly preserved settlement with all its in situ aspects. And what we found in our excavations from 2009 onwards at a plot right adjacent to the previous one was this: a total destruction, lots of rubble, pits, and fill material, which included pottery of our level 1, which is contemporary with late Minoan 1A period. In 2012, we were excavating this plot where the red star is. We came across with an interesting deposit at the edge of the trench. It was an ash layer extending in an approximately 15 meters square area. This was an area outside the fortifications of the Çeşme level 2. It was an area outside the settlement. So here is another slide which to show you how this white ash material is looking, and you can see how distinctive it is. And because I saw the Terran volcanic ash before in Crete at Mohlos many years ago, it occurred to me that this may be volcanic ash from Thera, because the stratigraphic location of it, of course, was also fitting. So we took a sample, we sent it to Atom Institute in Austria, and Max Pichler and Johannes Sterba, they conducted analysis on these samples, because they were already conducting different analyses from different sites in Western Anatolian coastline at that time. And in the end, it took some years until this issue was resolved, but in the end, the ash turned out to be originating from the eruption of Thera volcano, late Bronze Age eruption of Thera volcano. Underneath the ash layer, we came across with layers of chaotic deposits, including big stones and rubble that yielded archaeological material, again contemporary with late Minoan 1A. This part here. So I'll show you some details. The one on the right is this rubble, and this is while we were excavating it. I put it so that you can see how it looks. Seeing all this, in the meantime, I always found the northern section of the excavation trenches kind of strange, because it always gave me the impression of a field rather than a settlement deposit. And you can see here at the back. So seeing all this, I thought, could there be a tsunami deposit here? And contacted my good friend and colleague Beverly Goodman from Haifa University, with whom we already collaborated before at Çeşme and Limantepe. So she came and we did sampling and looked at the data back in 2015. In the end, Çeşme excavations continued, and we completed it eventually in 2019. And in the meantime, of course, the analysis also continued. And by the end of 2020, once Beverly also focused and completed her analysis, we managed to see the full picture at Çeşme Bağlararası. The site was devastated by a series of tsunamis generated by the eruption of Thera. I want to show you now a couple of slides of our excavations in this trench, just to show you how difficult it was to excavate this deposit and how difficult it was to define the contexts. So basically, we followed our excavation documentation system, collecting the soils and the materials from different fields. And as you can see, it wasn't very meaningful while excavating it, but of course, we documented it in detail. And once we kind of scraped off the entire level 1 material from the area, this was what was left at the site. So all that you see here belongs to our level 2, and all what you saw before was actually a field. The sedimentological analysis of sampling from the section where the ash was unearthed revealed 3 main sequences. These, we call them H1, H2, and H3. And the lowest one, H1, as you can see here, was also further subdivided into four subphases, this part here. And this is the material which is contemporary with our level 1. So all this field was actually, we call it H1. The base of the sequence, H1A, contains framework supported large rubble pottery, which is contemporary with the late minor 118, shell and bone. H1B, which is above, is similar but has matrix supported sediments without bedding, a fine non-continuous ash layer we saw there, and imbricated inclusions and smaller rubble pieces. These chaotic characteristics are topped by a thicker ash layer whose elemental values match tephra from the late Bronze Age eruption of Santorini, as you can see here. The lower contact of the thick ash layer is sharp, and the upper contact has truncated flame-like structures, like here. You can see it in the zoom photograph. An approximately 8 centimeter thick layer, H1C, above the ash contains similar sediments and inclusions as H1B. However, instead of another ash layer, it ends with a distinctive charcoal-rich lens with charred remains. The top layer of the sequence, H1D, repeats the similar sediments, inclusions, and pottery, which is again contemporary with late minor 118, but with the addition of larger rubble, capped by imbricated pebbles and a very fine terminal silty layer lens mudcap. The entire H1 sequence has an overall average foraminifera abundance, so 5 to 9 individuals per cc, and 2.9 per cc species with a high proportion of staining. These are geological terminologies that Beverly knows better, but through her, I now know a little bit more. The archaeological and sedimentological results from H1 horizon at Çeşme Bağlararası include ample indicators known from modern and paleo-tsunami deposits, including allochthonous marine inclusions, higher foraminifera abundance with staining, elemental trends skewed towards marine-like values, imbrication, collapsed structures, and non-deliberate burial. A patch of Sarastoderma glaucum, which are brackish water clams that live in highly concentrated beds, is also found within the tsunami debris next to the fortification. Patella marine limpet mollusks were also identified among the rubble. This species attaches itself to hard surfaces such as rocky coasts or marine structures, and similarly could have arrived during the tsunami. There are also signs of collapse and intrusion into the buildings at the site. That doesn't fit earthquake evidence because the damage is unidirectional and nearby walls are unaffected. For example, in one of the houses connected to the fortification wall, a rubble layer intrudes from a collapsed portion of the wall and is blanketed by a darker soil that constitutes even further into the room. Such deposits would have required a very strong force to dismantle and redistribute the stones. Tsunami deposits blocked by the fortification wall can also be seen outside the fortification wall. Here you can see where the red star is. That's the tsunami deposit outside the fortification. So it came from outside and hit the fortification wall, and the bigger rubble is there. And this part here, imagine a house in ruins here at that point. And the tsunami, when it came, it hit here. It brought all the stones of the wall into this ruined house, and which was later also blanketed by this dark soil here. So all this darker soil is the tsunami field, and what you see, the yellow color, is actually the original deposit of the previous Çeşme 2 phase. So we think we are looking at the top of the iceberg here. There are many other contexts that we need to study and analyze in the following months and years. And just to give you a sneak peek of what is there to come, the photo above is the photo of the section where the red line is looking from the fortification side. So this is the dotted red line. When you look from outside here, this is what you see. And if you look carefully, you can see all these intrusions here, which are entering into the settlement. Various channelings of the tsunami intrusions can be seen in the photo above. I would like to take your attention to the massive piece of mud. There it is. Mud brick wall there on the section, which probably collapsed into this field from the nearby wall and got stuck in the tsunami debris. Here you can see the intrusions again, which clearly shows us how the tsunami intruded into the abandoned settlement in many different parts. These photographs are from Sumatra tsunami. They show the devastating dimensions of the disaster, but what's also striking here is the similar type of channelings of the tsunami intrusions into the settlement. As you can see, some parts stood still without much damage, but the tsunami continued further inland and destroyed other structures. So you can see here the tsunami going in. Some buildings are there intact, but next to them, adjacent to them, the tsunami went further in and in. So this looks very similar to what we think had happened at Çeşme Bağlararası at that time. Here, further away from that channeling, which was here, but we saw it also on the section where the red star is another intrusion. It's very similar to the other one and was also excavated. This area actually yielded one of the most interesting discoveries of this horizon, namely a skeleton of an articulated young male human. The body was found within the rubble in a prone, slightly curved position, following the curvature of the limits of the tsunami intrusion. The skeleton doesn't show any signs of deliberate, culturally appropriate burial. So when we look at the positioning of the skeleton, the grave goods, there are no grave goods, no context, no special treatment of the body. So we didn't think it would be a burial. And the location of the skeleton exhibits classic signatures of deposition within debris flow. Here you can see again the skeleton after it's been opened. And when you look at the right lower photograph, you can see these channelings coming. And here you see this fill here. It came from outside, destroying this wall. The tsunami went in. That particular point is actually there where the red line is. So the skeleton is lying in the innermost part of the tsunami. So the tsunami came into the settlement all the way to here, and the dead body is actually in the innermost part. These deposits you see here belong to phase 2A, so previous period. And the skeleton is currently being studied by Professor Yılmaz Erdal from Hacettepe University, and we will be preparing a full publication of it, because this, for the time being, is the only known victim of the Santorini eruption, which was being excavated in an archaeological context. After a natural disaster, such as a tsunami, survivors are tasked with the responsibility of recruiting victims, recovering the dead, caring for the injured, and post-event cleanup. At Çeşme Bağlararası, this effort is visible in the presence of misshapen pits, interpreted here as the preserved remains from their effort to retrieve victims from the tsunami debris. The human skeleton was located about a meter below such a pit, suggesting that it was maybe too deep to be found and retrieved, and therefore probably unknowingly left behind. In both the 2004 Indian Ocean tsunami and the 2011 Tohoku earthquake tsunami, missing persons accounted for over 10% of the death, even a decade after the events. Victims that are swept up in the debris flow during a tsunami can get deeply buried within it or drown at sea, thereby making 100% victim recovery unrealistic. The Çeşme Bağlararası young man is an ancient example of the same phenomenon. So you can see here on the left the Indonesia tsunami rescue efforts, and when you look closely, the excavated areas, people looking for the missing people, and the deposition of the trees, the different sediments in the area. And the photograph on the right is us excavating Çeşme Bağlararası during the excavation. And when you look at it, I see so many similarities with these modern rescue efforts, because all those we were basically excavating the pits first. So the photograph here is a very similar situation, shows us a very similar situation of the modern tsunami rescue efforts. The dating of the eruption of Thera is one of the hottest debates in Mediterranean archaeology. According to archaeological correlations, the event occurred during the late Minoan 1A period, which is also shown at Çeşme Bağlararası. This period is generally compared to the 18th Egyptian dynasty in the 16th century BC. This range of dates is termed the low chronology. However, measurements from radiocarbon dating of olive wood from the ash layers at Santorini have produced older ages, primarily in the mid-late 17th century BC, a range of dates referred to as high chronology. This mismatch upsets the understanding of which people, what powers and related events coexisted at that time. In our recent study, we published 9 new radiocarbon dates, all coming from the deposits of Çeşme Bağlararası level 1, which is contemporary with late Minoan 1A period. As you can see, all radiocarbon ages have 2 sigma time ranges that coincide with both the high and the low chronologies for the late Bronze Age Thera eruption and tsunami events. However, the samples also group into 2 clusters, one which encompasses more of the high range and the other more of the low range. It is important to note that this clustering has no association with stratigraphic position. The significance of this is there is no gradient by depth with age, and therefore the horizons were deposited in rapid sequence. We suggest that because all the samples are from a well-sealed but mixed tsunami deposits, the youngest ages are more relevant for determining the age of the event itself. According to this principle, the entire event deposits H1 to A1, 1A to 1D, cannot be older than the youngest measurement within it. The 2 clusters may reflect the mixing from the underlying archaeological site, which is an older, out-of-use portion of the site, while the younger cluster of ages are from the materials introduced during the event itself. Accordingly, the 2 sigma radiocarbon age results of the closest sample to the human skeleton, the one at the lowest one, number 1 here, after calibration, dates to 1612 to 1573 and 1565 to 1501, and would be the most representative of the event's age. While these ages do not negate either chronology, it does limit the age to no older than 1612, which is this point here, BC, and includes ample support for the low chronology. We are very well aware that the calibration within this period is notoriously problematic and has long been a subject of extensive research. While the dates presented here do not definitely resolve the issue, they provide fresh radiocarbon data from a well-sealed, archaeologically associated Terran eruption-related event horizon in the Aegean, and will likely open new discussions. We propose that the late Bronze Age eruption of Thera volcano produced a series of tsunami landfalls that also arrived at the western Anatolian Aegean site of Çeşme Bağlararası in the semi-closed Bay of Çeşme within a short period of time. Within Çeşme level 1 settlement was located a few hundred meters north of the excavated areas and is currently lying under the modern town of Çeşme, the yellow star in my map. The arrival of the tsunamis must have literally wiped out the entire settlement and brought its debris into and over the ruins of the nearby old settlement, which was already out of use at that time. Thus, all level 1 material found at the excavation most probably arrived at the site as part of the tsunami deposits. There are 4 discernible horizons identified though more could be present. The identification of multiple tsunami events at Çeşme Bağlararası supports the proposed view that there were distinctive eruption phases with varying hiatuses between them. While many tsunami scenarios concentrate attention towards the southern or southeastern directions or near field along the outskirts of the island itself, some simulations include as far north as Çeşme. Discovery of tsunami deposits generated at Çeşme Bağlararası is the first evidence that supports this model. Çeşme Bağlararası is one of the many coastal settlements impacted by the eruption and related earthquakes, tsunamis, ashfall, and fires, and will provide a type site reference for identifying others. Despite the presumed regional impact, tsunami evidence has only been reported for a handful of late Bronze Age sites, namely Malya, Gues, Palecastro, Leton, Miletus, and Fethiye. We argue that this start of reports is an artifact of methodological approach, where the ability to identify paleo-tsunami sediments has advanced in recent years, and specifically with regard to the case of the Thera late Bronze Age eruption, the presence of tephra has been the baseline of observation, wherein consideration of a possible paleo-tsunami deposit followed. Although prevailing winds direct the ash cloud, the tsunami waves are propagated in linear concentric pattern to large distances, provided there's no obstacle like islands or peninsulas, in which case the wave energy will bend, interfering and reflecting off one another, resulting in either increased or decreased wave heights and coastal inundation. Tsunamis, unlike tephra fallout, are independent of wind patterns. Therefore, even in the absence of ash fallout in areas such as the Western Aegean, the Cycladic Islands, and northeastern and northern Aegean coasts, tsunami deposits may be present. Following the event, according to the archaeological remains, the thriving community at Çeşme Bağlararası ceased to exist for more than a century. In addition to loss of life and property damage, any coastal features or harboring areas would have been debris strewn and made unusable or highly compromised for a period. The ash deposits would have altered the chemistry of soils, impacted aquifers, and damaged crops. Seaborne trade at the time of the event was central to the vitality and power of societies, in particular the sea-dominating Minoans. The social fallout from the destruction of the system's core infrastructure, like ships, harbors, ports, coastal settlements, cannot be understated. While many people survived the event, the dynamics of everyday life, political relationships, and economic structures would have shifted. Disasters and human reaction to them alter societies. In the case of the late Bronze Age eruption of Thera, it can be considered a compound disaster wherein multiple short-term and long-term challenges necessitated societal responses that would have had a multi-generational impact. While many people survived the event, their worlds would have changed. Çeşme Bağlararası, as seen here silently lying under the modern town of Çeşme, finally began to tell us its story with all its glory and tragedy. Çeşmemen, a probable inhabitant of the site, is one of the first representatives of the many people who died or went missing on that tragic day, but probably helped many others to be found by archaeologists in the future. Excavations and study of Çeşme Bağlararası material have been continuing in collaborative effort of international participation and interdisciplinary work. I would like to thank everyone involved in the project for their valuable efforts, also to our students and their contributions. Our gratitude also goes to the supporting institutes of the Çeşme Bağlararası excavations and the IRER project, particularly Turkish Ministry of Culture and Tourism, Ankara University, and Institute for Aegean Prehistory, INSTA. I also would like to take this opportunity and remember our mentor who passed away, Professor Erkanal, and also our dear friend, my very close friend, and a member of our ERA project, Dr. Rıza Tuncel. Thank you very much.